Hello everyone, welcome back to another Project Gladiator weather forecast. Today I'll be covering the weather for September 22nd of 2023, and currently we have a slight risk for eastern Wyoming into western South Dakota and western Nebraska. We also do have a slight risk for the coast of North Carolina and southern Virginia. As for our threats for today, we do have two different 5% tornado threats for both slight risk locations. As for wind, we do have two different 5% wind threats for both slight risk locations. As for hail, we do have a 15% hail threat for the slight risk location for Wyoming, South Dakota, and Nebraska, with the threat of large to very large hail, possibly even gorilla-sized hail. However, as for the slight risk for the coast of North Carolina and Virginia, this is going to be associated with Tropical Storm Ophelia, and I will be going over everything that you need to know regarding Tropical Storm Ophelia if you live in any of the areas that could potentially be impacted by Tropical Storm Ophelia. As for our main threats for these different slight risk locations, for both slight risk locations, we are expected to see the primary threat of a few tornadoes, as well as a 15% hail threat with the possibility of large to very large hail for the slight risk for the high plains. So this slight risk does have a tornado threat and a hail threat that does go hand in hand with a secondary wind threat for both slight risk locations. Taking a look at the tropics, primarily focusing on Tropical Storm Ophelia, you can see that currently Tropical Storm Ophelia is a tropical storm, and it is expected to impact the North Carolina region and ride up along the coast through Virginia into Maryland as a tropical depression. It is expected to weaken down into a tropical depression by 8 a.m. on Sunday and lead to the threat of flash flooding. However, as of right now, we do have tropical storm warnings that are going all along the eastern coast. We have tropical storm warnings that are from North Carolina in the Chesapeake Bay into the coast of Maryland and Delaware even. So we definitely have our warnings out for Tropical Storm Ophelia. But then let's take a look at some of the forecasts that we have out for Tropical Storm Ophelia. Let's take a look at the peak surge for Tropical Storm Ophelia along the coast. We are expected to see storm surge up to 5 feet anywhere in yellow, as well as storm surge up to 3 feet anywhere in blue. So we could definitely see some coastal flooding with that, and that is going to be probably one of the primary threats with Tropical Storm Ophelia. But then if we take a look at the flash flooding potential, we do have two areas of a moderate risk. We do have this area of moderate risk for flash flooding, as well as this area for Richmond, Virginia. So we are definitely expected to see tons of flash flooding across this region. We are definitely expected to see tons of rainfall across this region, as well as coastal flooding from some of the storm surge that we are seeing. So overall, the main threats from Tropical Storm Ophelia is going to be flash flooding and coastal flooding, as well as the threat of tornadoes with this as well. Taking a look at our radar mega model, starting off with our 500 millibars like we usually do, focusing on this trough and slight risk for the high plains. You can see that we do have this trough that is going to continue its progression eastward, and this area of enhanced flow that I did touch on yesterday is expected to continue its trek on the southern edge into the eastern edge of this trough. It is going to continue to advect to the east, and we are expected to see some of that trough advection today, triggering the slight risk for the high plains. We are definitely expected to see quite a bit of veering of the winds across this region, which will definitely support the threat of tornadoes and definitely generate some directional shear to support the threat of tornadoes. We definitely do have tons of veering in isobars and wind vectors. We are definitely expected to see tons of directional shear to definitely support the threat of tornadoes due to this trough advection across the Rockies into the high plains. This trough is expected to continue its trek eastward and trigger severe thunderstorms that could potentially be significant across the central plains into the Midwest. Let's actually pull up the outlook for tomorrow. We currently have a day 2 enhanced risk for Kansas into Missouri and northeastern Oklahoma. We definitely have that enhanced risk region there, and then we are expected to see possibly a bimodal region for bimodal system for severe thunderstorms, as we do have this a what could potentially be a triple point across Kansas, Missouri, and Oklahoma. But then we are expected to see the low pressure system with a little bit of occlusion with a cold front and a warm front off into Minnesota and Wisconsin, which is going to lead to a little bit of occlusion. So we are definitely expected to see a bimodal region for severe thunderstorms by tomorrow, and a lot of these severe thunderstorms could potentially be significant. And currently this could be updated by tomorrow. Some of the one other weather channel has also said that this could potentially go up to a moderate risk by tomorrow. However, it isn't at that right now, but I don't want to jump the gun or provide any false information. So currently we do have this enhanced risk. So at minimum, it is going to be an enhanced risk. And we could definitely see significant impacts from some of these severe thunderstorms tomorrow. So definitely watch out for that tomorrow if you live across any of the regions that could potentially be impacted by these storms. You definitely want to be taking precautions for some of the storms that we could see tomorrow. But then as for some of the storms that we do have today, again, we do have that trough advection with a lot of the veering of the winds from this trough, which will definitely generate directional shear to support the threat of that 5% tornado threat across the high plains. But then if we take a look at Tropical Storm Ophelia in the Atlantic Ocean, we are expected to see some impacts from Tropical Storm Ophelia today, and then it is expected to continue up along the coast. We do have some warnings out. We have tropical storm warnings, and we also have storm surge warnings across the coast. So again, we are expected to see coastal flooding. We are expected to see storm surge up to 5 feet across the coast, and especially the threat of tornadoes as well as hurricanes. And I mean, tropical storms and hurricanes definitely do have a lot of directional shear, as we have a low pressure system with strong rotating winds along around that low pressure system, which generates tons of directional shear to definitely support a tornado threat from this. So we could not only see the threat of flash flooding, coastal flooding, and maybe some high winds, but also the threat of a few tornadoes across this region. So do keep that in mind if you live across any of these slight risk regions. Taking a look at our dew points, focusing on the slight risk for South Dakota, Wyoming, and Nebraska, you can see that we are expected to see a little bit of a dry line develop out to the west of this slight risk region. This is going to aid in severe thunderstorm development with the trough advection that we have. We are expected to see a little bit of lee troughing, as a lot of the lower level winds are going to be blocked by the mountains to the west, as well as I did forget to mention that we are expected to see some orographic elongated photographs, as a lot of the lower level winds are going to be blocked. However, the mid-level and upper level winds are still able to get across the mountains. Not only does that lead to lee troughing to help aid in severe thunderstorm development, that also leads to elongated photographs to support the threat of large to very large hail, and possibly even gorilla hail across this region. So we are definitely expected to see some aid from lee troughing, as well as this dry line to help support severe thunderstorm development for this slight risk region. As for our dew points and our instability, we are definitely expected to have some fairly strong instability. It isn't going to be too strong. A lot of these dew points are going to be fairly weak. They're going to be mostly in the mid-50s into the upper 40s. Now that should get us possibly enough instability to support our various threats. However, our instability might be a little bit more on the weaker side, because a lot of our dew points are going to be fairly weak. Taking a look at our temperatures, focusing on the low pressure system that is in the Pacific Northwest, where we had that trough, this trough is expected to lower temperatures across the Pacific Northwest significantly. So we are definitely expected to see much colder temperatures across the Pacific Northwest, including Idaho, Wyoming, Montana, Oregon, northern Nevada, and maybe even parts of Utah. We are definitely expected to see very cold temperatures. And then if we go down into the nighttime, we are expected to see some temperatures that could potentially get below freezing in some of the more mountainous regions, where we have a lot of these pink colors. That is going to indicate temperatures of below freezing. So we are expected to see much colder temperatures because of this trough across the Pacific Northwest. I'm not sure if this will stay after the trough. However, we are expected to see stuff like this at this time of year because we are currently in meteorological fall, and we are going to start getting much colder in this time of year. So I'm not really surprised by this trough lowering temperatures this low. However, it is definitely something you want to watch for if you do live across the Pacific Northwest. You are expected to see much colder temperatures this week and possibly into next week as well because of this trough. Taking a look at our instability, focusing on the slight risk region for the high plains first, and then we'll take a look at the instability for Tropical Storm Ophelia. Currently, for the slight risk for the high plains, we do have overall fairly moderate in lower end instability. We are expected to see Cape values are going to be getting into the 1000s and getting as high as the mid 1000s. It's not going to be getting into the 2000s. So our instability is going to be a little bit more on the weaker side. However, this instability should definitely be enough to fuel and support our various threats for damaging winds, a few tornadoes, and large to very large hail across this region. So even though this instability is a little bit more on the weaker side, we could definitely still see enough fuel to definitely support our various threats across this region. But if we take a look at our Cape values for Tropical Storm Ophelia, you can see that we do have some fairly strong instability coming out of the Atlantic Ocean, circling around due to westerly flow or easterly flow out of the Atlantic to lead to some strong instability along the coast, which will definitely support our various threats, including the threat of a few tornadoes and some damaging winds. Taking a look at our wind gusts, I do want to take a look at some of the winds that we could be seeing from hurricane or tropical storm Ophelia. We are expected to see some fairly strong winds, especially along the coast. We are definitely expected to see some very strong winds along the coast because of tropical storm Ophelia, and even more so inland. We are still expected to see wind gusts that could potentially get up to 50 miles per hour and maybe even higher. So we are definitely expected to see some fairly strong winds from this, and definitely be able to definitely support the threat of some storm surge along the coast up to 5 feet. Again, we could see the threat of coastal flooding. So we are definitely expected to have some fairly strong winds from tropical storm Ophelia. So do keep that in mind if you live anywhere along the coast. Even more inland, we could still see some winds that could get up to 60 miles per hour outside of the marginal threat region. So do keep that in mind if you live in any of the areas that could potentially be impacted by tropical storm Ophelia. Taking a look at our energy helicity index, focusing on the slight risk for the high plains, and the 5% tornado threat. Let me actually pull up our tornado outlook so we can see where that is relative to our energy helicity index readings. Let's focus on the 5% tornado threat for the high plains first. You can see that we do have some fairly strong energy helicity index. However, this would be supportive of a 5% tornado threat. However, this is more so what you would see towards a 2% tornado threat. So our instability could be weakening our energy helicity index readings a little bit to not get them as high to really show and indicate a 5% tornado threat. However, we should definitely see enough directional shear that would definitely be supportive of our 5% tornado threat. However, our instability might be a little bit on the weaker side, but we could definitely see the threat of a few tornadoes for the high plains where this 5% tornado threat is. But then if we take a look at the 5% tornado threat for the coast of North Carolina with Tropical Storm Ophelia, we definitely do have some fairly strong energy helicity index ratings along the coast, so we should definitely be able to support or see the threat of a few tornadoes across the coast of North Carolina and Virginia. But then if you're seeing a lot of this energy helicity index readings across the coast or across the Central Plains, and you're wondering why I'm not mentioning them, this is because we definitely have directional shear, and we definitely have instability that would definitely be supportive of widespread strong energy helicity index readings. However, there are no storms in this region that would be able to use these as of right now, so that's why we don't have a tornado threat anywhere across the Central Plains as of right now, because we aren't expected to see any storm development in the Central Plains to really be able to use any of this. However, tomorrow, where we do have pretty much full trough advection across the Central Plains, we should definitely see a lot of that directional shear being used up by tomorrow. Now that I've told you the weather, please go down to the description and check out the socials for Project Gladiator and join the Discord for any updates on Project Gladiator. If you live in any of the areas that I covered for today, or if you live in any of the areas that could potentially see significant severe thunderstorms tomorrow, please stay weather alert for the time being and watch for updates, and hopefully I will be able to see you guys tomorrow with another forecast.